Hi everybody, thank you for your company again. Thanks for joining me today. Another beautiful day here. I hope it is when we come around to watching these things. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 10 says this: "Finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power." So let's think back over the last 5 chapters of Ephesians. Paul has been talking about in the first 3 chapters what Christ has done, what God has done for us in sending his Son to die for us, to bring us salvation, to bring us glory, to bring us majesty. And then in the second 3 chapters, Paul concentrates on our response. How do we live in the light of all that God has done for us? How do we live? How are we to behave? How are we to react to God's glory and God's majesty that has been visited upon us? And most particularly in chapter 6 so far, we've talked about the implications for family life as spouses, as parents or children, and as workers or indeed employers. So now in verse 10 he says, "Finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power." So clearly, unlike in some of his letters, Paul is making a final point. He's asking us to be strong. But sometimes that's difficult, isn't it? Sometimes when we think back to perhaps difficulties within marriages or difficulties within the relationship between parent and child, we realise that we've not been very strong. We've made mistakes, we've got things wrong, we've fallen. And I don't think what Paul is saying, in fact I'm sure that what Paul is not saying here, is that we're to be kind of macho, even as women. We're to be sort of some sort of person who never gets things wrong, who is able to in our own strength hold up ourselves against anything and everything that attacks. Because what he's saying is, finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. I think one of the difficulties of life today is that we assume that we need to be strong in our own power. We don't want to show weakness. We don't want to demonstrate or imply that we're not capable. And I think that can, not always, but can create huge difficulties for us. Because when we do crash and burn, then it becomes even more shameful or even more difficult for us to kind of confess that or own up to that. But what Paul is saying here is that God's got us. God is for us. God is offering to us his strength, and we can lean into him. We can press ourselves into his presence. We can draw upon his strength, and in our weakness we can find that he is holding us and sustaining us and carrying us through the most difficult of circumstances. So whether that's in our marriages, our marriage relationships, whether that's in our relationship with children or with parents, whether that's in our work situation, or a whole raft of other situations that we've been thinking about, whether that's to do with the loss of loved ones, or whatever it is, whatever we're going through, whether it's to do with just outright sin. We've messed things up before God. We know we've hurt him, we've offended him. But Paul comes back to this: finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. God's power is immense. We've looked at that before. God's power is incredible, and his power is for us. We're running out of time. Let me leave you with that thought. Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for your power. Thank you that when we are weak, you are strong. When we are in need, you have provision. Thank you that we can draw on that every moment of every day. Help us to do so today, I pray. Amen. God bless. Take care.